Scripture portion of the day, Day 58.
Luke 6, OANT. And now it happened on the Sabbath when Yeshua was walking among the grain. His disciples were plucking the ears and were rubbing them in their hands and eating them. But some of the Pharisees were saying to them, "Why are you doing what is illegal to do on the Sabbath?" Yeshua answered and said to them, "Have you not read this thing that David did when he was hungry and those who were with him? When he entered the house of God, and he took and ate the bread of the table of the Lord Jehovah, and he gave to those who were with him, which was not legal to eat except for the priests only. And he said to them, The Son of Man is master of the Sabbath. But it happened on another Sabbath that he entered a synagogue, and he was teaching, and a man was there whose right hand was shriveled. And the scribes and the Pharisees were watching him whether he would heal on the Sabbath, that they might be able to accuse him. But he knew their schemes, and he said to that man whose hand was shriveled, Stand, come to the center of the synagogue. And when he came and stood, Yeshua said to them, I ask you, what is legal on the Sabbath, to do good or evil, to save life or destroy? And he gazed at all of them, and he said to them, Straighten out your hand. And he stretched it out, and his hand was restored like the other. And they were filled with envy, and they were speaking one to another of what they should do to Yeshua. But it occurred in those days that Yeshua went out to the mountain to pray. And there he was waiting for the morning into the prayer of God. And when it was dawn, he called his disciples, and he chose 12 of them, whom he had named apostles. Simeon, who he named Kepha, and Andreas, his brother, and Jacob, and Johanan, and Philippus, and Bar Ptolemy, and Mattei, and Thoma, and Jacob Bar Halphi, Simeon, who is called the Zealot, Yehuda bar Jochab, and Yehuda Iscariota, who was the traitor. And Yeshua descended with them, and he stood in the valley, and the great crowd of his disciples, and the multitude of crowds of people from all of Judea and from Jerusalem and from the sea coasts of Tyre and Sidon, who came to hear his message and be healed of their sicknesses, and those who were afflicted by foul spirits, and they were healed. And all the crowds were seeking to touch him, and the power was proceeding from him, and it was healing all of them. And he lifted up his eyes upon the disciples and said, Blessed are you, poor ones, because yours is the kingdom of God. Blessed are you who hunger now, for you shall be satisfied. Blessed are you who weep now, for you shall laugh. Blessed are you whenever men shall hate you, and shall separate you, and shall insult you, and shall cast out your name as evil for the Son of Man's sake. Rejoice in that day, and leap for joy, for your reward is great in heaven. For so were the fathers doing to the prophets. But woe to you rich men, for you have received your comfort. Woe to you satisfied ones, for you shall hunger. Woe to you who are laughing now, for you shall weep, and you shall wail. Woe to you when men shall say wonderful things about you, for so were the fathers during the false prophets. But I shall say to you that who are hearing, love your enemies, and do what is wonderful to those who hate you. Bless those who curse you, and pray over those who take you away by force. And to him who strikes you on your cheek, offer the other. And from whoever takes away your cloak, withhold not your coat also. Give to everyone who asks, and you do not demand from him who takes what is yours. And just as you desire people to do for you, do also for them. For if you love those who love you, what goodness do you have? Even sinners love those who love them. And if you are doing good to those who treat you well, what goodness do you have? For even sinners do likewise. If you lend to him from whom you expect to be repaid, what goodness do you have? For even sinners lend to sinners to be repaid likewise. But love your enemies, treat them well, and lend and do not cut off. And hope of any person, and your reward shall be great, and you shall be the children of the highest, because he is kind towards evil and towards the unbelievers. Be therefore merciful, just also your Father is merciful. Do not judge, and you will not be judged. Do not be condemned, and you will not be condemned. Forgive, and you will be forgiven. Give, and it shall be given to you. Good measure, pressed down, overflowing, and they shall cast into your lap. For that which measure you measure, it will be measured to you. And he told them a parable. Can a blind man lead a blind man? Will not both of them fall in the ditch? There is no disciple greater than his mentor, for everyone who is perfected shall be like his mentor. But why did you observe a chip on the eye of your brother, but you do not see the plank that is in your own eye? Or how can you say to your brother, My brother, let me cast out the chip from your eye, when behold, the plank that is in your own eye is not visible to you? Hypocrite, first cast out the plank from your eye, and then you will be given to you to pull out the chip from your brother's eye. There is not a good tree that produces bad fruit, neither a bad tree that produces good fruit. For every tree that is known by its fruits, and they do not pick figs from thorns, neither do they gather grapes from a bush. A good man brings forth from the good tree treasures that is in his heart, and the evil man brings out from the evil treasure that is in his heart. And for the lips speak for the fullness of the heart. Why are you calling me, my Lord, and you're not doing whatever I say? Every person who comes to me and heard my words and does them, I will show you what he is like. He is like a man who built a house, and he dug and he went deep and laid the foundations of the rock. And when there was a flood, the flood beat on the house, and it would not shake it, and its foundations was founded on the rock. And he who heard and did not do it is like the man who built his house on the soil without a foundation. And when the river beat on it, immediately it fell, and the fall of the house was great. Genesis 37, Septuagint. And Jacob dwelled in the land where his father sojourned, in the land of Canaan. And these are the generations of Jacob. And Joseph was 17 years old, feeding the sheep of his father with his brethren, being young, with the sons of Bala, and with the sons of Zelpha, and the wives of his father. And Joseph brought to Israel their father their evil reproach. And Jacob loved Joseph more than all his sons, because he had to him the son of old age, and he made for him a coat of many colors. And his brethren, having seen that his father loved him more than all his sons, hated him, and could not speak anything peaceable to him. And Joseph dreamed a dream, and reported it to his brethren. And he said to them, Hear this dream which I have dreamed. I thought you were binding sheaves in the middle of the field, and my sheaf stood up and was erected, and your sheaves turned round, and did obeisance to my sheaves. And his brethren said to him, Shalt thou indeed reign over us? And shalt thou indeed be Lord over us? And they hated him still more for his dreams and for his words. And he dreamed another dream, and related it to his father and to his brethren, and said, Behold, I have dreamed another dream, and it was as were the sun and the moon and the 11 stars did me reverence. And his father rebuked him, and said to him, What is this dream which thou dreamed? Shall indeed both I and thy mother and thy brethren come and bow before thee to the earth? And his brethren envied him, but his father observed the saying. And his brethren went to feed the sheep of their father to Shechem. And Israel said to Joseph, Do not thy brethren feed their flock in Shechem? Come, I will send thee to them. And he said to him, Behold, I am here. And Israel said to him, Go, and see if thy brethren and the sheep are well, and bring me word. And he sent him out of the valley of Hebron, and he came to Shechem. And a man found him wandering in the field, and the men asked him, saying, What seekest thou? And he said, I am seeking my brethren. Tell me where they feed their flocks. And the man said to him, They have departed thence, and I heard them saying, Let us go to Dothan. And Joseph went after his brethren, and found them in Dothan. And they spied him from a distance before he drew nigh to them, and they wickedly took counsel to slay him. And each said to his brother, Behold, the dreamer comes. Now then, come, let us kill him, and cast him into one of the pits. And we will say, an evil wild beast has devoured him, and we shall see what his dreams will be. And Reuben, having heard it, rescued him out of their hands, and said, Let us not kill him. And Reuben said to them, Shed not blood. Cast him into one of these pits in the wilderness, but do not lay your hands upon him, that he might rescue him out of their hands, and restore him to his father. And it came to pass, when Joseph came to his brethren, that they stripped Joseph of his many-colored coat that was upon him. And they took him, and cast him into the pit. And the pit was empty, and it had not water. And they sat down to eat bread. And having lifted up their eyes, they beheld, and lo, Ishmaelitish travelers came from Gilead, and their camels were heavily loaded with spices, and resin, and myrrh, and they went to bring them to Egypt. And Judah said to his brethren, What profit is if we slay our brother, and conceal his blood? Come, let us sell him to these Ishmaelites, and let not our hands be upon him, because he is our brother and our flesh. And his brethren hearkened. And the men, the merchants of Midian, went by, and they drew, and lifted Joseph out of the pit, and sold Joseph to the Ishmaelites for 20 pieces of gold. And they brought Joseph down into Egypt. And Reuben returned to the pit, and sees not Joseph in the pit, and he tore his garments. And he returned to his brethren, and said, The boy is not, and I whither I am yet to go. And having taken the coat of Joseph, they slew a kid of the goats, and stained the coat with his blood. And they sent the coat of many colors, and they brought it to their father, and said, This we have found. Know if we buy thy son's coat or no. And he recognized it, and said, It is my son's coat. An evil wild beast has devoured him. A wild beast has carried off Joseph. And Jacob rent his clothes, and put sackcloth on his loins, and mourned for his son many days. And all his sons and his daughters gathered themselves together, and came to comfort him. But he would not be comforted, saying, I will go down to my son's mourning to Hades. And his father wept for him. And the Midianites sold Joseph into Egypt, and Potipharah, the eunuch of Pharaoh, captain of the guard. 2 Samuel 2, Septuagint. And it came to pass after this, that David inquired of the Lord, saying, Shall I go up into any of the cities of Judah? And the Lord said unto him, Go up. And David said, Whither shall I go up? And he said unto Hebron. So David went up thither, and his 2 wives, Ahinoam, the Jezreelitess, and Abigail, the Nabal's wife, the Carmelite. And his men that were with him did David bring up, every man with his household, and they dwelt in the cities of Hebron. And the men of Judah came there, and they anointed David king over house of Judah. And they told David, saying, that the men of Jabesh Gilead were they that buried Saul. And David sent messages unto the men of Jabesh Gilead, and said unto them, Blessed be ye of the Lord, that you have showed this kindness unto your Lord, even unto Saul, and have buried him. And now the Lord show kindness and trust unto you, and I also will requite you this kindness, because you have done this thing. Therefore now, let your hands be strengthened, and be valiant, for your master Saul is dead, and also the house of Judah has anointed me king over them. But Abner the son of Ner, captain of Saul's host, took Ishbosheth the son of Saul, and brought him over to Nahamiam, and made him king over Gilead, and over Asherites, and over Jezreel, and over Ephraim, and over Benjamin, and over all Israel. And Ishbosheth, son Saul, was 40 years old when he began to reign over Israel, and reigned 2 years. But the house of Judah followed David. And the time that David was king in Hebron over the house of Judah was 7 years and 6 months. And Abner the son of Ner, and the servants of Ishbosheth the son of Saul, went out from Mahanaim to Gibeon. And Joab the son of Zeruiah, the servant of David, went out and met together by the pool of Gibeon. And they sat down, and one on the one side of the pool and one on the other side of the pool. And Abner said to Joab, "Let the young men now rise, and play before us." And Joab said, "Let them arise." Then there arose and went over by number 12 of Benjamin, which pertained to Ishbosheth, the son of Saul, and 12 of the servants of David. And they caught every one his fellow by the head, and thrust his sword in his fellow's side, so they fell down together. Therefore the place was called Hekath Hazarim, which is in Gibeon. And there was a very sore battle that day, and Abner was beaten, and the men of Israel, before the servants of David. And there were 3 sons of Zeruiah there, Joab, Abishai, and Asahel. And Asahel was light of foot, as a wild roe. And Asahel pursued after Abner. In going he turned not to the right hand or to the left from following Abner. Then Abner looked behind him and said, "Art thou Asahel?" And he answered, "I am." And Abner said to him, "Turn thee aside to the right hand or to thy left, and lay thee hold of one of the young men, and take thee his armor." But Asahel would not turn aside from following of him. And Abner said again to Asahel, "Turn thee aside from following me. Wherefore should I smite thee to the ground? How then should I hold up my face to Joab thy brother?" Howbeit he refused to turn aside. Wherefore Abner, with the hinder end of the spear, smote him under the 5th rib, that the spear came out behind him, and he fell down there, and died in the same place. And it came to pass, that as many as came to the place where Asahel fell down and died, stood still. Joab also and Abishai pursued after Abner. And the sun went down when they were come to the hill of Ammah, that lieth before Giah, by the way of the wilderness of Gibeon. And the children of Benjamin gathered themselves together after Abner, and became one troop, and stood on the top of a hill. Then Abner called to Joab, and said, "Shall the sword devour forever? Knowest not that there will be bitterness in the latter end? How long shall it be then, ere thou bid the people return from following their brethren?" And Joab said, "As God liveth, unless thou hadst spoken, surely then in the morning the people had gone up every one that follows his brother." So Joab blew a trumpet, and all the people stood still, and pursued after Israel no more, neither fought they any more. And Abner and his men walked all that night through the plain, and passed over Jordan, and went through all Bithron, and they came to Mahanaim. And Joab returned to following Abner, and when he had gathered all the people together, there lacked of David's servants 19 men, and Asahel. But the servants of David had smitten of Benjamin, and of Abner's men, so 360 men died. And they took up Asahel, and buried him in the sepulchre of his father, which was in Bethlehem. And Joab his men went all night, and they came to Hebron at break of day. 2 Samuel 3, Septuagint. Now there was a long war between the house of Saul and the house of David. But David waxed stronger and stronger, and the house of Saul waxed weaker and weaker. And unto David were sons born in Hebron, and his firstborn was Amnon of Ahimaim the Jezreelitess, and the second Gilead of Abigail the wife of Nabal the Carmelite, and the third Absalom the son of Maachah, the daughter of Talmai the king of Geshur, and the fourth Adoniah the son of Haggith, and the fifth Shephatiah the son of Abital, and the sixth Ithream of Eglah, David's wife. These were born to David in Hebron. And it came to pass, while there was war between the house of Saul and the house of David, that Abner made himself strong for the house of Saul. And Saul had a concubine, whose name was Rizpah, and the daughter of Reah. And Ishbosheth said to Abner, Wherefore hast thou gone into thy father's concubine? Then when Abner very wroth for the words of Ishbosheth, and said, I am a dog's head, which against Judah do show kindness to stay unto the house of Saul thy father, to his brethren, and to his friends, and have not delivered thee into the hands of David, that thou chargest me today with a fault concerning this woman? So do God to Abner, and more also, except as the Lord has sworn to David, even so I do to him. To translate the kingdom from the house of Saul, and set up the throne of David over Israel and over Judah, from Dan even to Beersheba. And he could not answer Abner a word again, because he feared him. And Abner sent messengers to David on his behalf, saying, Whose is the land? Saying also, Make thy league with me, and behold, my hand shall be with thee, to bring about all Israel unto thee. And he said, Well, I will make a league with thee, but one thing I require of thee, that is, that thou shalt not see my face, except thou first bring Michal, Saul's daughter, when thou comest to my face. And David sent messengers to Ishbosheth, Saul's son, saying, Deliver me my wife, Michal, which I espoused to me for 100 foreskins of the Philistines. And Ishbosheth sent and took her from her husband, even from Phaltiel, the son of Laish. And her husband went with her, along weeping behind her, to Bahurim. And said Abner unto him, Go return. And he returned. And Abner had communication with the elders of Israel, saying, Ye sought for David in times past to be king over you. Now then, do it. For the Lord hath spoken to David, saying, By the hand of my servant David I will save my people, Israel, out of the hand of the Philistines, and out of the hand of all their enemies. And Abner also spoke in the ears of Benjamin. And Abner went to speak in the ear of David in Hebron all that seemed good to Israel, and that seemed good to the whole house of Benjamin. So Abner came to David to Hebron, and 20 men with him. And David made Abner and the men that were with him a feast. And Abner said to David, I will arise and go, and will gather all Israel unto my lord the king, that they may make a league with thee, and that thou mayst reign over all thine heart desires. And David sent Abner away, and he went in peace. And behold, the servants of David and Joab came from pursuing a troop, and brought in a great spoil with them. But Abner was not with David in Hebron, for he sent him away, and he was gone in peace. When Joab and all the host was with him were come, they told Joab, saying, Abner, the son of Ner, came to the king, and he has sent him away, and he is gone in peace. Then Joab came to the king, and said, What hast thou done? Behold, Abner came unto thee. Why is it that thou hast sent him away? He is quite gone. Thou knowest, Abner the son of Ner, that he came to deceive thee, and to know thy going out and thy coming in, and to know all that thou doest. And when Joab was come out from David, he sent messengers after Abner, which brought him again from the well of Sirah. But David knew it not. And when Abner was returned to Hebron, Joab took him aside in the gate to speak with him quietly, and smote him under the 5th rib, that he died, for the blood of Asahel his brother. And afterward, when David heard it, he said, I and my kingdom are guiltless before the Lord forever, for the blood of Abner the son of Ner. Let it rest on the head of Joab, and on all his father's house, and let there not fail from the house of Joab one that hath issue, that is a leper, or that is leaneth on a staff, or that hath fallen on the sword, and lacketh bread. So Joab and Abishai, his brother, slew Abner, because he had slain their brother Asahel at Gibeon in the battle. And David said to Joab, and to all the people that were with him, Rend your clothes, and gird you with sackcloth, and mourn for Abner. And the king David himself followed the bier. And they buried Abner in Hebron. And the king lifted up his voice and wept at the grave of Abner, and all the people wept. And the king lamented over Abner, and said, Died Abner, as a fool dieth. Thy hands were not bound, nor thy feet put into fetters. As a man falleth before wicked men, so fallest thou. And all the people wept again over him. When all the people came to the cause of David to eat meat, while it was yet day, David sware, saying, So do God to me, and more so if I taste bread, or aught else, till the sun be gone down. And all the people took note of it, and it pleased them, and whatsoever the king did pleased all the people. For the people and all Israel understood that in that was not of the king to slay Abner the son of Ner. And the king said unto his servants, Know ye not that there is a prince and a great man fallen this day in Israel? And I am this day weak. Though anointed king, these men sons of Zeruiah be too hard for me. The Lord shall reward the doer of evil according to his wickedness. Psalms 50, Septuagint. A psalm of Asaph. The mighty God, even the Lord, hath spoken, and called the earth from the rising of the sun unto the going thereof. Out of Zion, the perfection of beauty, God hath shined. Our God shall come, and shall not keep silent. A fire shall devour before him, and it shall be very tempestuous round about him. And he shall call to the heavens from above, and to the earth, that he may judge his people. Gather my saints together unto me, those that have made a covenant with me by sacrifice. And the heavens shall declare his righteousness, for God is judge himself. Selah. Hear, my people, and I will speak, O Israel, and I will testify against thee. I am God, even thy God. I will not reprove thee for thy sacrifices or your burnt offerings, to have been continually before me. I will take no bullock out of thy house, nor he-goats out of thy fold. For every beast of the forest is mine, and the cattle upon 1,000 hills. I know all the fowls of the mountains, and the wild beasts of the field are mine. If I were hungry, I would not tell thee, for the world is mine, and the fullness thereof. I will eat the flesh of bulls, or drink the blood of goats. Offer unto God thanksgiving, and pay thy vows unto the Most High. And call upon me in the days of trouble, and I will deliver thee, and thou shalt glorify me. But unto the wicked God saith, What hast thou to do to declare my statutes? Or that thou shouldest take my covenant into thy mouth? Seeing thou hatest instruction, and castest my words behind thee, when thou sawest a thief, then thou consecratest with him, and hast been partaker with adulterers. Thou givest thy mouth to evil, and thy tongue frameth deceit. Thou sittest and speakest against thy brother. Thou slanderest thy own mother's son. These things hast thou done, and I kept silent. Thou thoughtest that I was altogether such as one as thyself, but I will reprove thee, and set them in order before thine eyes. Now consider this, ye that forget God, lest I tear you in pieces, and there be none to deliver. Whoso offereth praise glorifieth me, and to him that ordereth his conversation aright will I show the salvation of God.